One. Hey, how you doing? Brian Cain, host of the Allie, Beth, Allman podcast, here with Erin Young, Garrett, and Erin. Super excited to continue, our discussion about the mindset of real estate. And one of the things that we talked about before we got on to today's podcast and started recording was that you had a very special opportunity at Allie, Beth, where you all had a guest speaker, and you brought up a point that I think resonates with all of our agents, and it's one we want to kind of talk about today.
Yes. So we met with our top agent who has a team, and they produced over 550 million in sales last year, which is one of the top teams in the country. And, he's a hard worker. But from our meeting yesterday, one of the things that he pointed out was that this is a team business, and it's not buyer versus seller, but, you may be on the buyer side or you may be on the seller side representing each of those parties, but you're also working with the other agent to get the deal done.
Yeah, I think it's that concept of like buyer versus seller, who's going to win versus no, teamwork makes the dream work. Like, how do we do this together to make the best for both parties, and talk about kind of that mindset shift from, being a all or nothing versus no, we both can win here. It's kind of the Stephen Covey 7 Habits of Highly Effective People of, seek win-win, right? How do we both win in this to make this valuable for us?
And that's true. And there are things that are non-negotiables for a buyer, and there's non-negotiables for a seller. But in a contract and in a deal, there's a lot of things where you can get both parties to the same, point. And and that's what the agent's responsibility is to manage their client and get everybody there. So at the end of the day, the deal gets done. The buyer wants the home, the seller wants to sell it, and that's, you get the deal done. And I don't think, in a lot of ways, a lot of people, a lot of athletes come into this business because there is that adrenaline rush of getting the deal done, of winning, of closing the deal and all of that. And, you are trying to, negotiate as much as you can on behalf of your client. But at the same time, if you overplay it, then you won't get to the, the closing table, or you won't make it to the bank either, and get paid. And so, and that was one of the things that he spoke about that just really resonated.
Yeah, I think that's really cool, as someone who's in the process right now of, selling my father's house back in Massachusetts. And luckily, I'm selling it to a friend of mine, and it's a different process than any house I've ever sold. And it's definitely much more of a teamwork process, or even as the seller or someone who's bought a house in the past, it's kind of always been like, hey, are you going to go compete for me? Are you going to go and try to get this best deal done? When in now that we're talking about it, it's like, well, how do we get it to work for both parties just to get it done? Like, what is it that I want? What is it that they want? How do we get there? And both not feeling like we're getting taken advantage of, and both not feeling like, we're really overstepping the boundaries and having to do what we're not uncomfortable with doing. What are some of the maybe psychological barriers, Erin, that you've seen, whether it's with agents or with buyers or sellers, that might get in the way of that concept of teamwork making the dream work?
For sure, from an agent every buyer and seller gets emotionally invested, right? I mean, as you're just talking about, you said it's your dad's home. So
it's a house I grew up in. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot with that, right? So, and your buyer has, different plans for it than what you guys had used it for. And life has changed. And so, everybody's emotionally invested in it. And that's one thing. So the agents, it's key for the agent to not jump onto their client's emotional roller coaster, because you have a high of, if you're on the sell side, you have the high of the buyer coming in, getting the contract, executing. But then, there's lots of lows of, I've got to do all this work to, the house gets inspected, and, essentially a buyer is paying an inspector to critique the house and the quality of care that you've given it. So, you can't jump on there. So my point being, there's a lot of lows after you reach the high of executing that contract. There's a lot of lows before you get back to a high of closing and, and turning the house over, the money hitting the bank account for the seller and the buyer getting the keys. And so just not jumping on that emotional roller coaster of your client is one of the key things. And it goes back to what we talked about last week of, what is it that every agent needs to do to, what are the fundamentals? We talked about the fundamentals for people.
Yeah, I love that concept of the emotional roller coaster, and I think some people enjoy the emotional roller coaster, they seek the emotional roller coaster. They like the ride, but ultimately I think the best performing agents are the ones that are able to maintain a self-control while the emotional roller coaster is going crazy around them. And as my mentor, Dr. Ken Ravizza, used to say around mental performance in any arena, he would say, you have to be in control of yourself before you can control your performance. He'd also say you have very little control of what goes on around you, but total control of how you choose to respond to it. And I think that's something that would be a really good mindset for the agents to take away, and can be simply summarized as E plus R equals O. It's a concept that Jack Canfield first talked about in his book, The Success Principles, that I heard Dr. Gilbert talk about on Success Hotline, is that event plus response equals outcome. And as an agent, I can't always control the events that happen. An inspection, a bank, closing dates, things like that. I can't control the events that happen, but I can control my response, and my response will influence the outcome. And I think for the agent, I know as a buyer and a seller, you're always looking for the agent who's got energy, that's positive, but is in control all the time, that they don't get emotional, and they're, no matter what happens to the deal, they're always moving forward with that positive mindset. I mean, how important do you think, Erin, is that energy and the mindset of the agent in terms of managing their clients, working with their clients?
It's very important. And I would also say in this moment where, inventory, it's so stressful, because buyers feel like they're overpaying, sellers are worried that they're underselling, and I mean, because that's probably something that you've thought about in your deal. Like, did I let it hit the market? I know I've got a guaranteed buyer, right? And there's something to be said for that when you have a guaranteed buyer and somebody, but you also, in this market with such low inventory, everybody questions, did I undersell the house? Without, did I give it, if you didn't put it in the MLS, did I give it enough market exposure? If you did put it in the MLS, did I give it enough time in the MLS for market exposure? Did I price it too low because my bids came in, all these offers came in so high? All those questions. There's just lots of second guessing yourself. And at the end of the day, the property's worth what a seller's willing to sell it for and a buyer's willing to pay for it. So.
Yeah, it's great. Well said. And I think when you look at that concept of as the agent continuing to move it forward and continuing to focus on the teamwork, making the dream work, I think one of our best examples to look at goes all the way back to 2004 in the Major League Baseball World Series. And then the Boston Red Sox were playing the New York Yankees in the American League Championship Series. Winner goes to the World Series. And the Red Sox are down 3-0. And it looks like, that the Red Sox are done. Never in the history of Major League Baseball has a team been down 3-0 and came back and won until 2004. And I want to share a quick little clip from my friend Sean Casey. He has a podcast called The Mayor's Office. And what he does is he interviews a lot of former Major League Baseball players, but they talk about concepts from the game that apply to everything in life. Similar to what we're doing here is we may talk about some concepts, from your basketball career or Keith's baseball career or mental performance coaching and athletics, but it ties to real estate, it ties to parenting, it ties to everything. And in this clip where Sean Casey's interviewing Curt Schilling, who, if you remember in 2004, he pitched with the bloody sock for the Red Sox, in that kind of historical game. Curt Schilling talks about what the team's response was when they were down 3-0 and how they focused on getting back to where they wanted to be. And one of the most historical runs in professional sports history, the Red Sox ran off 8 straight wins. Down 3-0, they won off 8 straight wins to win the ALCS and to win the World Series. Let's take a listen to Sean Casey and Curt Schilling talking about that process.
So when you go back though to your time in Boston, you mentioned a couple guys in Boston. I want to go back to this. Just the last thing I want to touch on is that '04 team, because you go back to the that '01 World Series, maybe the greatest World Series ever. Then you go back to the '04 team. You'll go down in the history because of the way you pitched. The bloody sock game, down 3-0 to the Yankees. You guys are the only team in the history, I believe, of professional sports. I don't know if it's to this day.
Baseball.
Just baseball, okay, to come down 3-0 and win 4 against the Yankees. Like, what was that like, though? That team, that whole, the whole thing that you guys pulled off in Boston. And, like I said, that team to break the curse and all the things that you guys did will go down as one of the greatest ever.
Well, so to start off, brush away all the eyewash stuff. What a sickeningly talented team.
Yeah.
Right? We had a batting champion hitting 9th. And we had Manny and David in the middle. I mean, it was the depth of that team, the talent of that team was only surpassed by the roster in New York. I mean, when you look at their roster, it was like, oh my God.
Right.
A-Rod, and that was a joke. But
Loaded.
but we had something they didn't, in the sense we loved and cared very deeply about each other. And that serves itself. I always say the best teams win the World Series. I don't care. The best teams win the World Series. And you realize then why? Because we're down 3-0 and Tito and we were talking in the locker room after the 3-0 and one of the things that I said, really?
One of the puppies.
He's excited about the World Series. That's a big World Series.
One of the things that I said was, listen, this is not, it's where I tried to define focus. I said, we don't have to win 4 straight. We don't have to win 3 straight, 2 straight, or we don't have to win the game tomorrow. You got to win the top of the first. You got to win the top of the first. I said, if we, as a 25-man team, if every one of us focuses just on the job that we are assigned to do in that minute, there's no chance we can get beat. None. And I mean, we went to the 9th the next night and won. I mean, but it was we, for 25 guys, after we were down 3-0, we won 8 straight. Wow. And it was the most focused I ever saw anybody.
Erin, what are you hearing Curt Schilling say there that you feel like can resonate with our agents?
Oh, I love that. It's just about every part of the deal. Don't get focused on what the end result may or may not be, the worst case scenario. I mean, obviously they were thinking about, here we are, we're going to lose the World Series and be embarrassed to lose it in for a sweep, which, as a professional athlete is embarrassing, to be at that level and not be able to win one game.
Right.
But all they were focused on was just doing their responsibility in the moment. And that's what got them to the end of that's what got them to 8 straight wins.
I love you saying, we're not trying to win 3 games. We're not trying to even win tomorrow's game. We're trying to win the top of the first, right?
Top of the first.
And I think if you can think about that concept as, I'm just trying to win the next step. How do I keep moving forward, right? And if I keep moving forward, the outcome takes care of itself. It's the complete process over outcome approach. And if you focus on the process and you hit every step in the process, eventually you're going to get to the outcome that you're looking for. And I go back and share a story. I was down at Midland Lee High School in Texas, and I was getting ready. Midland Lee was playing Odessa Permian. It was much after Friday Night Lights, and I was there. I'd been working with Lee all year, and I'm speaking at their pregame pep rally. And I'm all excited. I'm probably 3 or 4 Monsters or Red Bulls deep, and I'm running up the stairs to go into the gym to speak to the student body, and I'm going like 2 or 3 steps at a time. And their quarterback, a kid named Caden Coots, who I'm walking with, goes, "Whoa, Coach Cain, whoa, you can't skip steps." And I was like, ooh. First time here, I guess maybe that's a bad omen. So I walk back down the stairs and go, "Is it a game day thing?" He goes, "No, coach, you're always talking about the process." He goes, "And the process leads to results." He goes, "You can't skip a step in the process and expect to make it to the top. So every time we come to a staircase, we hit every single step on the way up. That's our physical reminder that you can't miss a step in the process and make it to the top." And that's what Curt Schilling is saying. And that's, I think, what our message of today is that teamwork makes the dream work, and work together, buyer and seller, agents and agents, to help the process move along to where it needs to be to get the deal done and make people happy.
Exactly. Great wisdom today.
Erin, thanks for being here. Dominate today. It's a great day to be with Team Allie, Beth. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.